Starting with news from Japan. Japan has dissolved its parliament. This sets the stage for general election at the end of the month. This will pit the newly elected Prime Minister Fumio Kishida against the unpopular opposition.
日本国憲法第7条により衆議院を解散する。
The election will decide who can better fix the economy, which has been affected due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This has been 11 days since Kishida took office. Polls show that he enjoys a reasonable public support. He is on track to maintaining a lower house majority for his Liberal Democratic Party and the Keimoto Party coalition partner. A recent poll conducted by a local newspaper shows that about 48% of people want Kishida administration to work on the COVID-19 pandemic first, followed by economic recovery and employment. Then Kishida's party is pushing for COVID-19 measures, including supplying oral antiviral medication this year. His party is also focusing on economic growth and redistribution of wealth. They have also called for a sharp increase in defense spending. This is to acquire the capability to destroy ballistic missiles. This comes at a time when China becomes increasingly assertive over Taiwan. The campaign for general election will kick off on the 19th of October. And WION correspondent Phoebe Amoroso is joining us live from Tokyo for more on this story. Phoebe, thank you so much for joining us. Now, Japan's new Prime Minister has dissolved the parliament. What are the prospects of him winning the polls? What is the reason for calling the early elections as well?
So the election has only been called slightly early. Japan's lower house runs for a 4-year term, and that's due to end on October the 21st. So his dissolving of parliament is only about a week early. But there's reasons that he's done that, and it's particularly to change the image of the Liberal Democratic Party. We just saw the LDP elections the last month, and that was after Prime Minister Suga stepped down over fierce public backlash and criticism over the government's handling of the pandemic. Really, support for that administration dropped to around 30%. So it was still a surprise announcement from Prime Minister Suga to step down, but this triggered a race within the LDP. 4 candidates unusually were in the running, and Kishida took the front. It would be now Kishida's mission to really try and show that the LDP is having a fresh start. Now, in terms of the opposition, the Constitutional Democratic Party is the main opposition, but they have not had much success in the elections. They're an offshoot of the Democratic Party, which has only been into power once between 2009 and 2012. So the chances are that the LDP will once again win the elections. However, Kishida is really taking a gamble here, as he's hoping to have a strong win, and this will give him a strong mandate to lead. But the question is, how much will the public see Kishida's administration as a continuation of the previous LDP administration versus him really trying to show that this is a new generation for the party? And that will decide whether the LDP lose seats or whether they maintain their position.
Right. Phoebe, we will come to that. Also, what I wanted to ask you was, can you elaborate on Prime Minister Kishida and what his policies are exactly and what he's likely looking at implementing now? What does Japan's regional outlook look like under Prime Minister Kishida?
Well, suddenly a lot of his policies are fairly domestic focused at the moment, given that, as you reported, 48% of people in that survey want him to focus on the COVID-19 pandemic response. So there is a huge amount of inward looking. He's announced that he would implement, for example, a fund for domestic vaccine, and has also promised to prepare for a worst case scenario, securing more medical resources. But in terms of the economy, also he's needing to boost that. He's promised a stimulus package worth trillions of yen, and is really trying to implement new capitalism, or redistribution of wealth, really appealing to those in the middle income. However, when it comes to sort of the region, there are 2 prongs. Certainly, defense is a big factor. There's been a lot of concern over China's increasing military activity in the East and South China Seas. So there has been a stronger promise to increase defense spending really quite sharply. There's, in the latest manifesto, says that they could increase that spending to 2% of GDP or more. Now, defense spending has been at 1% of GDP for decades. decade, so that is a big change. There's also a focus on economic security. In fact, in the latest Kishida administration, he created a position for economic security, a minister. We're looking into supply chain, securing semiconductors, but there's also concern about technologies leaking towards to China. However, Kishida is known as a consensus builder, and he's definitely shown that the door is open for dialogue with China. He's really trying to keep all doors open at the moment.
Right. Phoebe, do stay with us. We will just come back to you. Moving on. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.